Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Mediaclip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Kristen Gwinn-Becker, who is the founder and CEO of HistoryIT. Dr. Gwinn-Becker is coming to us from Portland, Maine. Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Gary?
I'm doing awesome. So I have been following the digitization market for a long time, but I'm unfamiliar with your company. Can you talk about how it started and what it is you do?
Yeah, I'd love to. Always love to talk about everything we do. So I founded HistoryIT almost 15 years ago, 2011. We are software and services for all things digital preservation and access. So we provide the range of services, kind of soup to nuts, digital archives and collections. We have our own software platform called Odyssey Preservation, which is, metadata, catalog management, digital asset management, and museum curation and presentation software all in one. So you name it. So our services range from strategic planning for digital collections. What's it going to take to get fully digital? What does that mean for an organization? What are the steps to get there? We have our own preservation imaging lab, so we do all of the imaging. We have legions of people who work on metadata creation as well as then the curatorial component.
So what's your story in terms of starting this? Because I find when people get into the preservation business, the archive, there's usually a personal story. There's usually something that inspired them to want to preserve history. What's your story with that?
You mean we're not all in it for the money and the glamour?
Exactly. The glamour of the archiving business. It's true.
It's true.
I'm waiting for the Hulu TV show, just like The Bear, right? Where someone
Yes.
comes in and
Yes,
does an
except
archiving
archivists. Yeah, my career spans both technology and humanities. I was when I started my career as a database and web developer for what that was in the 90s. So .com boom bust.
I'm having flashbacks
heyday.
now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I went to San Francisco in '99, and then I made the very traditional choice of moving from technology into doing a PhD in history. Very crowded.
Which everyone does at some point.
Exactly. Yes. It's like I said, it was a very, very crowded field, but I never wanted to teach. I just, got a research fellowship and that I couldn't say no to. And I loved history, but no idea what I wanted to do with it. Right. So I finished my doctorate and I had this unique set of skills. Right. But
Right.
In terms of being able to speak technology and understand all of the challenges around like the world of digital and the world of the humanities.
Sure.
And there were a lot, there still are a lot. Really what I had was years of experience in graduate school working in archives, right? Hundreds and hundreds of archives. And it was seen as this like, I have a PhD, so I have this secret access to this place that only archivists and historians go. And our role is to look at all this material and then interpret it for you, the rest of the world, right?
Almost like a gatekeeper mentality.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, but that in the like Google, online search age of 15 years ago, and today even, it's not realistic, right? That can't be the only model. People go online and they want information, right?
Right.
So I founded this company originally because I wanted to help organizations. Our market is organizations and companies, and we're not consumer focused. Help organizations better understand that we live in a time when content is king, and they are sitting on a unique trove of content, right? So, and that their archive is something that they need to utilize in a wide variety of ways.
Sure.
So that's really, it started with that, this kind of passion for figuring out ways to help organizations understand the value of their history and not only preserving it, but utilizing it to really kind of bolster all of their other efforts.
When you work with an organization, I mean, there's literally thousands of them around the country, right? And you've got everyone from like your local Kiwanis Club to businesses to nonprofits and all of these organizations. Yep. And the people that I talk to in the consumer scanning space, who are kind of getting into that market, it's like they're coming at it from the bottom end. They're working with local companies, maybe a library or a historical society or something. They are just stunned by the lack of cohesiveness to the materials, because the record keeping from maybe 50 years ago was not very good. or now they've got maybe 3D objects that they need
Right.
to scan or preserve.
Right.
Is that what you're
Right.
discovering even with big organizations?
Yeah, I mean, so we work with everything from the local historical society to every type of membership-based organization. We work with NFL teams. So I mean, it scans if I like to say if you're an organization older than 5 minutes and you can draw value from better being able to tell your story, you're ideal for working with us. Your question about it kind of being all over the map, it's absolutely true. The kind of main pain point I think we solve when we talk to any organization, what we hear most is, I'm overwhelmed. No idea where to begin. I'm overwhelmed. What's important? Where to start?
Right.
It's a mess. You name the condition, we've seen it. That's why we always start with strategy. HistoryIT's approach is strategy, then digital preservation, and then and then the utilization and the ROI of that. So creating a strategic plan is critical for any type of organization to figure out, to fully own where they are.
Right.
Which is I work with some organizations, I go in at least twice a week. I have to tell people who think that their organization is, we're 60% digital. You're like, you're at 2, maybe. Like, or like we've digitized, but what does that mean? It means we have really crappy PDFs somewhere and we don't even know what they are. So getting a strategic plan in place and saying, this is where we are. This is where all of our stakeholders want to get to. What is the roadmap to get there?
Sure.
And having that in place, because as people like staff and volunteer turnover, comes, we have various people with their hands in like the metadata, and that becomes a mess. So if we don't begin with a strategy, then it's going to fall apart. We've all had that happen. We've all had digital projects that, then the IT guy goes, and now what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, imagine you have a lot of stakeholders in these things that are just, like you said, they kind of have their own little turf, right? You've got the IT people who think they know better. They may not have a PhD in history, but they've got the IT background. Or you might have maybe the development organization that is trying to fundraise off these assets, trying to build the history, and they've got their agenda. And, so bringing all those people together has got to be not a technical challenge, but a human relations challenge. That's where the problem probably is.
Yeah. And I think early in my career, I really saw myself as a translator between like the IT side, the library side, the archive side, the curatorial side, the fundraising and development side, the executive side. They all use the same words, but they mean very different things. In a cataloging environment, that's really problematic, right? Because people use the words that they understand, like the normal language, to search for what they're looking for. So there's even just getting into the technical detail component of that, but the human part of it too. So a big part of our job in building that strategy is getting everyone on the same page and building a plan that meets all of those needs and isn't skewed to one side of it, right? Because then if IT owns it, librarians are going to be frustrated. If archives or libraries own it, fundraisers are never going to be able to use it, right? Because it's going to be cataloged in a way that is not useful.
The Dewey Decimal System, or what?
Yeah. The Library of Congress Subject Authority, where you have to use the word dwelling for house or home. It's just not realistic.
And I even think like even words that most normal people would think would be obvious, like archive, probably has a completely different meaning, and depending on who you're talking to. Because like in the IT world, archive means storage, doesn't necessarily mean you access it.
Right, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the metadata piece, because I think that's sort of interesting, because that's something that everyone kind of knows about and they're familiar with, because with EXIF data and things like that people can now manipulate even on their phones and things. There's a lot of apps for doing that sort of thing. Are there any AI tools that are helping with that now?
It's the huge question in this space right now, right? Is what's the balance of helping versus hurting, hindering, where we're already far behind, even in trying to get folks up to speed in what metadata means, and like that metadata is the magic that makes it all happen, right? If something isn't cataloged or tagged in ways that the group that needs to access it, much less future users, can understand, it is pointless. It is pointless. Don't do it. Like if you're not going to significantly invest in your metadata and the strategy of that metadata, you are wasting your time and money.
Right.
But it is the most involved and expensive project. Most of the projects we do are a minimum of 80,000 hours just in metadata creation.
Hours?
Hours.
Wow.
That's for a collection maybe 3, 4 million items. So AI can be a huge asset in many other areas, right?
Absolutely.
But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
metadata is never done, no matter how many tools you have, right? You have to
Right.
continue to refine it and refine it.
Mhm.
And using AI smartly, like any other approach, is going to make a lot of that creation more efficient, more consistent, but it still needs the human review, right? So
Mhm.
it's the balance of what was always like, well, let's balance the human component with the technology component, and now we're bringing in AI. Like I said, in most other areas, we're like, well, where is this going to help and where is it going to hinder? The danger of it is the same thing as the danger of cheap scanning, right? Is that like, oh no, we're just going to check it off the list now, and now we have a digital collection that
Mhm.
has. But if you have something that is not correctly or adequately described and tagged, you're not going to be able to find it. Or
Mhm.
the people you want to be able to find it are not going to be able to find it, in which case, why is it there?
Right. So you kind of touched on something like, the cheap scan, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you got a local historical society and they decide they're going to digitize their archive, right? And they, buy a HP or Canon scanner or Epson
Yep.
scanner
Yep.
and they just start. I mean, have you come across those situations where you have to go back and just redo
All the
everything?
time. All the time.
You just hope they haven't thrown them out, right?
right. Yeah. It's huge. And that's, I mean, that's a huge danger of, so I would say that the vast majority of what we do is educational. Like it's just trying to get people to understand, like, why are you investing? Like why is it worth the investment? Like this is the only copy of something you have, right? You want to make sure it's done correctly. So we are constantly educating about like, what does a true digital preservation file look like? How do you get it, right? There
Mhm.
is the international standard that of like what that means. And if you just use a regular consumer scanner, like you're going to get a JPEG or a PDF, right? And then so it's very easy when we start talking to people about you get a JPEG or a PDF, that's great. If that's a reference, that's something you want to throw in social media or email to your sister, fantastic. But that's not preservation
Right,
because when we blink, the web is not going to render JPEGs or PDFs anymore,
right,
which were already a compressed format. I mean, well, it's a whole other interview to get into the details of the
right.
file format itself, right? But just talking about that piece of it, educating people about an organization, nonprofit organizations especially, they'll have gotten a grant 10 years ago to scan all of their magazines. And now they have these crappy black and white scans that are completely compressed. And I have to come in and say, like, well, how are we going to explain to our board that we spent, this money a few years ago and now we have to spend it to redo it all over again?
Right.
It's a challenge.
Now, do you ever run into situations where maybe people are making judgment calls on what to scan and
Mm,
it's frustrating because they're like, well, we don't need that. And you're like, well, from a historical perspective, you
yeah,
might and you want, but you might have people who are like, well, I want to save a couple bucks because you're quoting
yep,
me 80,000 hours.
yep,
And it's like, well, maybe we just don't do this. But that actually might
yep.
be, important information.
Yeah, I find it as a historian, I find it incredibly frustrating. The question I hear more than anything else that makes me want to scream is, well, what's important? And I'm supposed to tell you that, or you're supposed to decide. But it's another reason that History IT always begins with that strategic plan, right? Like we want to come in. If an organization wants to make that decision, I
Mhm.
don't love it, but I understand it. I
Right,
understand that these decisions have to be made. What I want is for all of the stakeholders to understand the risk that's involved in doing that,
right.
right? So first of all, who the hell are we to say what's important and what's going to be important 20
Right,
years from
exactly.
now? So for us, the imperative is, so our hashtag is safe history. Like we believe that it is important and it is in danger. And one of the most dangerous pieces of it is this like just our general attitude. Like we are going to choose what's important, but we don't actually know. So
Right.
that's this other advantage of bringing in an outside perspective to say,
Mhm.
I understand why you think this is important now,
Right.
but you don't know what's going to be valuable in the future. And here's some ways in which it might be.
Mhm.
And you need someone to come in that's worked with 300 other types of organizations like this to say,
Mhm.
these are the ways in which you can utilize all of this and justify this undertaking.
Do you work with organizations, let's say, once you get their catalog digitized and archived, do you work with them so their current content is future proof? Because the challenge is, of course, now many organizations are generating quadrillion gigaquads or
Yeah,
whatever of
absolutely.
content, and they want
Yep.
that to be findable and
Yep.
historically preserved in it. And they're clearly, if they're taking pictures at a board dinner off their iPhone,
Yep.
that's not an archive, that HEIC file is not archival.
Right. But increasingly the quality is off the charts.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yes, what we do, and then you get into social media, the gamut of like what the content that's being produced now. So part of our strategic planning is, I think that it goes in phases. There's kind of everything pre 21st century that has a plan, like anything that's paper,
Right.
3D, 2D, like that's actually the easiest component of any strategic plan. That's just like, what's it going to take to digitally preserve it, to get our future proof assets, and to truly catalog it.
Right.
Then there's like 2000 to 2012, the worst of in terms of digital preservation. Every possible kind of media that is completely obsolete.
Right.
DVD you can scratch and it's gone. Hard drives all over the place. Zip disks. So there's that, and then
I haven't
there's
heard the phrase zip disk in a long time, so
I see them all the time. Yeah,
they just went bad randomly.
yeah. Well, most things do eventually, and then it's now, right? So 2012 really to now, cloud technology that's like a more kind of consistent framework, but there's still the same danger, or people like putting their content in all these various things they think are going to be there forever, and they're not.
Right. From now on, because once you preserve the history, where do you go in the future? Because you've got to
Yes.
maintain that discipline then.
And what we don't want to do is say, like, you don't want to come back to a company like HistoryIT in 20 years and be like, okay, now let's do these last 20 years. So
But from a
part of
business
that
model, you got
strategic,
to love that, right?
yeah. Well, it's still no, because like what we care about most of the business model is making sure that history is preserved and used.
Right.
So when we build that strategic plan, we look at, okay, so now on an annual basis, what is being produced that we want to archive?
Right.
Let's build that in. And let's not make that every time we come in. It's very rare that someone's sole job is to do all of this, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's okay. So who is producing? Are you producing publications? You're producing annual reports. You're producing photos. Like, where is all this content being generated?
Mm-hmm.
Who is responsible for it? And then what is the plan on a regular basis to get that into the archive in a way that is consistent? Many times they do have an annual contract with us where they're going to send us X amount of content each year. And we're going to integrate it for them. More often they're doing it, and we're just kind of monitoring for consistency.
Right. Obviously, like in my world, it's pictures and increasingly video and all that, but you've got all kinds of other material that you have to archive, right? I mean, imagine what's the craziest thing you've had to that has kind of been an archivable item?
Human skeleton. Craziest. It's all
That
over
is
the
pretty
map,
crazy.
really.
So was that like the founder of the organization? They wanted to
Can't
preserve
tell you.
that?
It may or may not have been Jimmy Hoffa. Yeah, it's the stuff we see is pretty crazy. But yes, I mean, so one of the things when we developed our software, which is called Odyssey Preservation, we wanted to make it so that any type of digital artifact, was treated the same way in terms of the metadata, right? So we can ingest any type of media, but then from a metadata perspective, we see an image, a digital asset of a plaque or a baseball, or a human head, the same as a letter, an email, a video, a video produced from a film reel, that it has a consistent application across it. Because when I click on Gary's name, I want to see anywhere he's going to appear in this digital archive, whether that's a name on a plaque or because he threw this baseball or whatever it is.
Or it's my head.
It's skull. Your skull. Yeah. Yeah. Which would make this podcast way more like
really dark. It would go very dark. So one of the concerns that is out there has got to be deteriorating media. Right. Because in my world with, people doing consumer scanning and whatnot with the old, videotapes don't last forever. Like you said, even, back in the day when people used to burn their own CDs, people thought those lasted for a long time, but they don't. Do you have any special techniques or processes you had when you come across things that may be degraded to help restore those?
Well, restoration is a tricky thing and an expensive thing, right? So when we're talking about when we create the strategic plans, we look first and foremost at preservation priorities, right? And magnetic tape, or any kind of disc media, that's at the top of the list.
Right.
So magnetic tape, that's film reel, VHS, cassette, that's beyond peak degradation right now, which means like as we're speaking, your film is becoming less and less available. I think that the things that we emphasize with organizations is it's imperative to get it done professionally and to understand the formats that are being produced for you. So sending your VHS to someone who's going to give you a DVD is not preserving it, because it's a compressed format and that DVD can get scratched, right?
Right.
At least you are getting another format. The other thing that I think is it's a really hard pill for our partners to swallow is that often, if they don't even know what's on that film reel, they still need to invest in preserving it, because many of them are last play. If you could, if any of these reels or VHS, it's like, well, we want to look at it and determine whether or not it's important to preserve, right? You want a professional doing that, because it might be the only time you have to truly capture it. Are there secrets about restoration? And that's like well beyond I'm just a figurehead. But I think that understanding like the risk of it's not as simple as just like sending it out and getting something back.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things, like I said, in the consumer space, right? When you're dealing with, just normal VHS that someone was maybe recording TV shows on, then they threw their home movie on. It's probably if you can find a VHS player at this point, it's probably unwatchable anyway.
It might be unwatchable, but the worry is that it could be the last time, right? Or that you're going to do further damage by trying to watch it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I imagine with some of the organizations that you're working with, you may even be dealing with, what do you call those, like wax recordings and all kinds of like totally obsolete
cylinders and
totally obsolete formats. What's that like?
I mean, it's all the same. The transfer of content from one format into digital, there are different tools, there are different specialists, so like where we don't do that in-house, we partner with specialists who do that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's all about like the true strategy is in how you treat it in terms of being able to find it and utilize it.
Right. When you're talking to someone about their strategy, is how they could monetize it part of it? Because I imagine a lot of that is they don't even know what they could do with some of this stuff. For example, if you're talking to like a fraternity alumni society, right? And you're digitizing the sorority archives from whatever, that's a huge fundraising opportunity, perhaps.
Huge. Yes. So I think, about 65% of our business is membership-based organizations, private schools, religious organizations, fraternity, sorority, junior league, you name it. And without question, when they start to talk about like ROI, the biggest thing for any organization of any type, but particularly anything with an alumni base, is going to be alumni engagement, donor engagement, fundraising. It's not how many things can I print on a mug and sell, right?
Right. Although there might be some of that, right?
But not enough to pay for a digital archive of 3 million items, right? Or to continue to build lasting value from it. So without question, understanding that to be able to give anyone who works in an audience engagement environment. So obviously with membership based, we work with NFL, like think about fan base, like being able to, in a blink, serve up content that is unique and specific to any group I'm talking to or any individual I'm talking to. Hey, like, here is a photo of your mother. Here's a photo of all of your friends. Hey, look at this film clip from whatever. Oh, you're really interested in the philanthropic effort on your campus in 1962. Here it is. Like being able to pull that up instantly, we start to look at the value of that. So like Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, the first year they worked with us, their annual day of giving, they increased by 791%. So you're looking not just at like raising money for history, but with that.
Yeah, I mean, what you want to do is you want to build connections, right? So I imagine, like you said, when you talk about 1962, that what happened on campus, maybe there was, you want to find out not only what was happening in the educational department, but maybe who was speaking on campus that day, and then you connect those dots through that, and that's where the metadata comes in.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So, what kind of materials are you getting? Let's say, let's stick with the educational example, right? Where you're dealing with maybe imprecise sources or things like, maybe like the college newspaper or things like that to try and figure out what was happening on campus in 1962 or something like that. I mean, that's where I think a lot of your 80,000 hours is just deciphering things from back then.
Well, I think that the true goal of creating an accessible digital archive
Mhm.
is making the evidence, making the primary resource discoverable and available, then letting
Oh,
the
okay.
user interpret it, right? It's not my job to tell you the meaning of this. It's my job to preserve that evidence in a way that you can find it and make sense of it. If
Mhm.
anything, people are going to question if it's like, I now I'm telling you what this means, right?
Right.
So I can say, we can provide, sure, we're historians, we can provide historical context. We can say that, like, this is why this language is a certain way.
Right.
But what's really imperative is, like, this is like, for whatever it is, this is a photograph that was actually taken in 1962. This is an article from the campus newspaper that was authored by this person. It's not just something that AI generated in order to make an argument.
Is there a way to allow, I'm sure there is, I'm just wondering if your system provides for it, like to allow annotations. So let's say, for example, that article in 1962 appears and I'm still alive and I wrote that. I could maybe add context to it and it would not be historically accurate because it's, obviously a recollection. It's not verifiable, but it's a way to annotate things to kind of build that connection.
So, in terms of, like, looking for user feedback on the content, our digital museums provide ways to do that that are not directly, and every single organization asks for it and say, do you want to manage that?
Yeah.
If you want to manage it, our
Right.
system will do that.
Right.
Not one has said yes, right? So it's a lovely idea.
Right.
And a lot of folks think that they can get around metadata creation by crowdsourcing. It's not realistic. So we do get that feedback, and we often will look. So in the strategy of building and making digital assets available, we're looking at, like, what information isn't known and how can we use that to our advantage. So
Right.
in the sorority example, there might be a tag for unidentified Kappa in the Kappa Kappa Gamma Museum, right? And now at any point, we can search for, I want all images, I want all photographs or all video that have an unidentified person from between this year and this year on this campus. And now I'm going to use that to engage that alumni base, to
Right. Hey,
ask them,
identify this person.
yeah, yeah, do you know anyone in these photos? And so that interface is more, we're constantly getting, like, hey, that, like, you say it says you're in this room, but you're actually in that room, and I know that because I'm that guy in the corner over there. But, like, you get that, and then you have a human, to some
Mm.
extent an AI, but, like, a human, like, analyze that and determine its validity and then implement it, rather
Right.
than just asking. I mean, at this point, we're all familiar with patrols and everything else that can happen
Well,
if you just
yeah,
open it
it
up.
just people's memories aren't reliable. I mean, human beings are, their memories are not reliable. Maybe that guy may
Sure.
think he's in that room with that person, but he
Yeah.
may be remembering a different event entirely with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, human beings are not reliable. But what is reliable is History IT. And where can people go for more information about your company and what is you? Because I'm fascinated by this. I just think this is the coolest thing.
Hey, well, thank you. I'd have to agree with you. So find us at historyit.com. Our software is at odysseypreservation.com, or on all of the social at HistoryIT, or hashtag Safe History.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was great to meet you. Like I said, this
You
is,
too.
when I deal with a lot of people in the consumer scanning world, in the archiving world, I think they're just going to be fascinated by the level of detail you have to do with this sort of thing. And maybe they'll want to reach out and partner with you or something, because I think
Love it.
I think preserving, history like this is a tremendous avocation. And I appreciate you guys taking that on.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for the conversation today, too. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.